Okay, just dotting the last I, crossing the last T, and I got at least 2 more hours of work to do in the next hour. All right, first up tonight, Mike McGill, LibertyGoldAndSilver.com. We're going to talk about the economy, gold, where it's going, and where it's going is not good, as most of you well know by now. That utterly unfunny comic talk show host, whatever the hell he is, Bill Maher or Mayer, now says, in one of the few things I've ever seen him say that makes sense, he says, California is, not that you haven't heard it here long ago first, he said, California is now a corrupt third world country. Well, Bill, you can't strike out every time, so congratulations on a single. You did well. Here to back that up, the city or the county of L.A. is going to pay $14 million to what are being called illegally detained, not immigrants, they're invaders. $14 million to illegally detained invaders of America. That's very smart of Los Angeles. Very clever. Very good. That's actually not even third world. That's fourth world. Pretty disgusting, all of it. Hello, Mike. Welcome back. Good to talk to you.
Thanks for having us. Good to talk to you again, and thanks for having us back. It's been an interesting few weeks here. The tension and the stress levels and just the unique insanity of our nation, and of course other parts of the world as well, is on
orchestrated,
full tilt.
Orchestrated,
yeah,
planned,
it is orchestrated.
Every bit of it.
There's no question about it. In our home city here of Portland, Oregon, it's been really crazy.
When he said our, he wasn't talking about me. I'm too far south.
Yeah, you are. Ours mean we live in the state. It's the biggest city in the state we both actually live in. Other than that, we have no connection with, obviously. But a group of real strange radicals. Apparently, there were indigenous people are very angry about how they've been treated over the last few centuries since Columbus got here, as if the various Indian tribes were not treating each other very well before Columbus arrived. But that's another story.
Mike, that's a good point. No, it's another story, but it's worth mentioning. Read a little bit about the goings-on among the indigenous peoples before European whites got here. Pretty ugly stuff. Pretty ugly stuff,
yeah. I finished reading a really interesting, in-depth article about the Aztecs in Mexico, and on average, put to death about 1% of their population. They tore the hearts of living people out alive, cut them out of their body. About 50. Their population for all of Mexico, Guatemala, all that area was, who knows? It was around 40-50 million people possibly, and they killed over 50,000 people a year. And this has been going on for centuries.
All right. Yeah, I got a surprise for you. I got a surprise for you. Nobody knows this, or very few do. I've mentioned it here, but archaeologists and historians of that epoch have come to the decision that the agriculture down there was not nearly enough to sustain the protein needs of the population, 40 or 50 million people. Those pyramids, when they would tear the hearts out of people, they would kick the bodies, and they'd fall down those steep steps into the waiting hands of the hordes below, which would instantly cut them up into pieces, take them home, and have dinner. It was a meat market. It was a meat market. That's what they ate, those people.
Yeah, it's it's really the Caribs tribes that Columbus encountered when he first arrived also were quite fierce cannibals and everything else. So this is always conveniently forgotten about when
not PC to mention it. Don't you dare mention that. No.
Don't mention that. Well, in any case, this group got started here, and they broke into the lovely Oregon Historical Museum, which I've been to. I remember going there, the older version, when I was a little child with my mother. And they caused about $100,000 damage. They tore down statues of Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, and in there also was an amazing quilt. It's actually considered quite an heirloom. It was put together over the last 40, 50 years by various contributors, sewers, and it's a historical quilt depicting by panel, if you will, very large quilt. It's like a whole room size, like how can I say, a banner, if you will, hanging on a wall of development of African American people, their contributions to the state of Oregon, going back when they were even illegal to be here up to like 1975 or 1980. Well, this group they didn't think too much of that apparently, although they're supposed to be in line with Black Lives Matter, because that was stolen and it was found blocks away in a rainstorm, thrown in the trash somewhere. Somebody found it, and some of the colors have run a bit on it, and the curators and people in the black community also are really upset about it, as well they should be, because this is a real commemoration of these people's sacrifices and their efforts. So what we're seeing here is just wanton cruelty. Another thing that occurred, there's a company here, a nice little company. They have restaurants actually down your way, Medford, and I think Grants Pass. Also, another one in another part of Portland or East Portland, Gresham. But they have this called the Heroes Restaurant or Club, and they try to put up nice pictures and flags. They serve people working in first responders like medics, and policemen, and they really honor those people. And they had warnings to be careful. They were going to have they were facing like imminent death, and they had their restaurant shot up right down on the same street on 10th Avenue, right downtown Portland, right close to the Historical Society. And of course, he knocked out all the windows and vandalized it as well. Well, it's very interesting that the owner of these four restaurants is an African American combat veteran, and he said he's unbelievable upset about it, and just like
another black business torched by alleged black activists. They're communists. They're here to do exactly that. They don't care who they burn out. They don't care. They don't care for any. They don't care about any of the people. They're in it for their own power and aggrandizement, nothing else at all. And they're being paid well too, I believe. So that's what's going on up here in Portland. Meanwhile, in the Gold community, get on to something else. There's some interesting things occurring here. We've had a couple of things I wanted to just talk about very briefly. The M2 money supply, which is the value of all checking and saving accounts, cash, and other quickly liquidated assets in the banking system. It's kind of the harbinger of what's going on. It's absolutely blown up this year. The M2 money supply this year has increased an annual growth rate of 22.3%, which is the greatest in history. The highest level prior to that was in 2000, when we had the beginning of the dot-com collapse. The Fed had to cram a lot of money to bail out some big investors in that, and that year the growth rate was up 11%, and then it was up to about 9% both in 2008 and then again in 2011 and 12, when we started quantitative easing. Well, this rate, they're up at 22.3, and they're printing a lot more right now. So I think that annual rate will probably be closer to 25% in 1 year. Excuse me, but help us out here. The M2 money supply, is that something that we could link to QE? Is there a link there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's linked entirely to the Federal Reserve money printing and just borrowing and printing this money and cramming it into circulation anywhere they possibly can, handing out checks, billions to corporations, and all of that goes into the M2 money supply. So that's just egregious. The guy that I follow a lot, now we read him weekly. His name is in your readers if you're interested, you'll enjoy him. His name is Mark Mead Bailey. He's a little technical, but he's been writing a great the Gold Update scoreboard, and I think going on for 16, 17 years now. He's a really intelligent guy, and he said the Federal Reserve is just completely on a campaign of what he calls the 3 Ds, and they stand for debasement of the currency, unclaimable debt, irrepayable debt, and unclaimable derivatives. He calls them the 3 Ds. And he says, and it goes, in his view, these, and we agree too, they are the de facto firm foundation for precious metals, for gold and silver. As the currency is debased by more money printing continuously, more currency introduced into the economy, and with the debt running endlessly, and with more and more major derivative risk increasing constantly, these are all incredibly bullish for the precious metals. So the other way to speak about, the only way to avoid the assault of these 3 Ds, currency debasement, irrepayable debt, and unclaimable derivatives, is gold and silver, as far as we can tell. Possibly, you might be able to buy some other commodities, but they're difficult to store. Like if you buy oil, where do you have your own? You're going to put your own tank in the backyard? I don't think so. So I really like that idea of these 3 Ds. They are critically important, and they're going to wreak havoc on every pension plan, bank account, all kinds of savings. They already are. They're destroying it, and that's why gold and silver is responding so well. And we have gold and silver.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, you finish.
No, I said gold and silver has been a little bit of a correction right now, but not bad. Gold is holding just short of $1,900 an ounce, and silver is trading around.
Excuse me, though, Mike. How much of these corrections are honestly market-driven, or are they plunge protection team type control-driven?
Some of these corrections are a little bit, and they're big traders who will take big profits after they bought in, and they'll sell out at the top, and that's part of it. Part of it is plunge protection, no question about it. The gold is being buoyed by the drop in the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. dollar is just not doing well at all. It has declined since March about 10.5% against a basket of major world currencies, the dollar index, and plus other currencies as well. We've had a little tiny rise. The dollar is trying to get out of trying to keep above the 92 range, above 93 in the dollar index. It was high as 104 here 8 months ago. And they've made a couple of little attempts to try to buoy it up. And then gold
8 months
and silver
ago, that was almost that's almost the difference between BC and AD.
Yeah, I was going to say that. 8 months ago, that's 8 months is like 2 decades used to be, as far as time encapsulation of economic activity and all kinds of other peripheties that just continue to happen everywhere. So yeah, you're right. That's absolutely.
BC, no, seriously, BC and AD. Yeah. We're now in AD. It's dead and dying, and it's all being replaced. Here, check this out. The Federal Reserve sent out a note. This is on October 6th, and I didn't see the story, but I just found it. I'm putting it up. The Federal Reserve sent out a notice that they are stopping the printing of any paper currency this holiday season. And they claim it's all due to the virus, of course, because any new money they print could be contaminated. So just keep using the old, clean, used currency. You see how they're doing this? See how they're doing it?
Well, here's another thing they're doing. This is later. I'll cut to this article now. I was going to talk about into the program. But banks are using the excuse of the COVID virus to shut down their brick-and-mortar operations, to force people entirely into electronic credits. Just announced that U.S. Bank, the company this is a real old bank. It started at the turn of the last century in the early 1900s.
U.S. Bank?
Headquarters for a long time. U.S. Bank, right here, formed right here in Portland, Oregon. Headquarters now is in Minneapolis, but they just announced here yesterday or the day before they're closing 26 branches in the Portland area. Yeah, there's just like that. Bingo. We have all over Puget Sound a whole raft of banks. Bank of America, U.S. Bank, and various other ones are closing all kinds of banks around the Kitsap Peninsula. That's across the Puget Sound from Seattle. They're all over there. Just this litany of banks being shut down everywhere. Force people to do online banking
so
entirely
they're going to push. They're going to force everyone. So how are you going to deposit your checks? Drive by and just drop it in a depository slot and then drive away?
What Bank of America has now, and we're using this because we're working out of town, and we don't want to drive away. People will mail us checks. We're mailing to an alternate mailing address where we live. And what we can do, we just scan them on our cell phone. We just take a picture of it, and they're automatically right in our account instantly. So we just keep a record of those, and that's how we deposit. You can deposit checks anywhere in the world that way. If you have a cell phone, you can deposit a check in your bank from in Spain, and it will be just like you put it in your own bank.
How do you do that? You take a picture of it and send it?
You take a picture of it on an app they give you set up, and then that's deposited immediately and registered. Yeah. So this is what they're going to. Obviously, this is going to be. There may not come a point in a couple of years where you can hardly find a real bank to actually walk in and transact business. I'm not making this up. This is moving at breakneck speed.
How fast they're doing it. Wow.
It's very quickly.
They're already setting. I had a story yesterday or the day before that the feds are now about to release their own guidelines on official cryptocurrencies. In other words, government-sanctioned cryptocurrencies. I don't know what that's going to do to the Wild West crypto market, which is crazy. But let me finish, and then I want you to clean up my mess here. It's okay. If in fact the feds say you can only use cryptos that we approve of, and all those hundreds and maybe thousands, I don't know, that are out there on the Wild West, the blockchain Wild West, that are just doing their own thing. Their exercises in gambling is what they are. Those are going to be outlawed. They have no basis. They will not be exchangeable, convertible into our cryptos, etc. What's your take on it? Where are we going with official cryptos, which are clearly coming?
Our take on it, you can take that to the bank. I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah, but if the banks are all closed, what the hell do I do?
Yeah, my point is you can take that truth to the bank.
I got
They're
it.
Absolutely, precisely. Of course, if you think these central banks are going to allow any major private competition with their electronic fiat currencies, you have another thing coming.
I like that. Electronic fiat currency in the form of digital demarcations of some kind.
Yeah,
they may even call them digital bucks or digital dollars. Who knows?
Yeah, they'll have some interesting name for it. Yeah. Here's some more things I'd like to quote real fast. This is just excellent. These were quotes that this Meade Bailey, Mark, we just love this guy. He covered a series of quotations by top Fed bankers here. All right, and one thing he says is, in any case for dismissing gold, as reading directly, to one's relics collection, let alone to the dustbin for garbage collection, finds no footing whatsoever, giving the comparably massive growth in stateside money supply. We just discussed that. One cannot hide from this debasement ride. This data, with data as sourced from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, it shan't be starker than this. And then he quotes some people here at the Fed. These articles, these are just amazing. Fed Chair Powell reiterated concern for tragic, these are quotes now, economic risk should there not be further fiscal support, end quote. It means at the first sign of anything going on, we will be printing more money. St. Louis Fed head Bullard recommended the bank stay accommodative, even should the post-COVID recovery, be robust. In other words, even if there's a complete recovery from this fake virus, the Fed must stay completely accommodating. Means make any loan to any rich entity they would possibly ask for. Number 3, Chicago Fed hawk Evans hit with hindsight that understating the inflation as we now do suggests that the rate hikes from 2015 to 2018 were somewhat undue. Of course, and lastly, Fed head Williams, New York, he's really outrageous, noted that the bank's buying of debt is already aggressively at an extremely high level. So, in other words, all the chiefs of the Fed banks around the United States are all calling for endless money printing, endless ramping up of electronic credits to keep this house of cards alive, and they're not going to back off that. Along with that, ECB head Lagarde of the European Union, we talk about her, said that we will pay you to take our money. She actually said that in kind of laughing way. Also, China's renminbi has had the greatest upsurge here in the last couple of days of valuation against the U.S. dollar. So all this means these banks are really jamming it out there.
Wow. All right. Stand by just a couple minutes. Seattle teacher tells 8th graders that peace is racist. And then he added, art history is white supremacist. How do these communist, Bolshevik, Zionist, Marxist, Leninist scum get into our schools to destroy the minds of our children like this? It's incredible. Oh, and then the Duke faculty approved a proposal for a new minor. At Duke, you can minor in inequality studies now.
All
right. So don't forget, peace is racist and art history is white supremacy in the raw.
There you go. We have to get rid of the Mona Lisa and everything else then, if that's the case, right? After all Da Vinci's works, put that right in the trash can. Let's go for some finger painting from some indigenous.
How about all the great music, classical music, Beethoven, Brahms, Bach? How about the operas, Verdi, Wagner? Doesn't matter.
All trash.
It's all racist. This is what Bolshevism is all about. Dear friends, most of you understand that. They want to burn it all down. I'm not kidding. They want that all gone.
Well, they're going to need some more money to do that if our trade deficit doesn't improve. That's my next thing on the call. The United States trade deficit just hit a 14-year high of $63.6 billion in the month of July, up $10 billion, and going up daily. And now with the U.S. dollar continuing to drop, that means that our dollar is worth less and less. And of course, that means that the foreigners, what do they do with all this money, this deficit? Well, I'll tell you what they do. They buy U.S. Treasury bonds that pay them a pittance of interest. Well, if the value of U.S. Treasury bond, the currency, it continues to decline, they're very apt to buy less and less bonds. And if there's less and less demand for new U.S. debt, that's going to drive up interest rates, and that's going to cause rising inflation. Right. And that's what we're starting to see now already. We've asserted that this will get really going here by late spring. It will start becoming noticeable. And this, again, you can't
late
borrow
spring?
your way.
You think we're going to be around in late spring? Really?
It's hard to say, but if we are, it will be noticeable. It will be noticeable. No guarantees on that, Jeff. I realize, but a couple of other things that I would like to mention here, along with gold. In spite of the drawback here recently, gold exchange traded funds surpassed, the World Gold Council announced, surpassed 1,000 tons for the year in September. Those are new holdings coming in. So gold. So again, investors are buying gold. more banks, major banks in the world. The largest bank of Singapore, and also SBU, Swiss Bank United, the second largest bank in Switzerland, and a whole host of other banks. There's just a litany of them. There's probably 20 or 30 major players in the world are all calling for gold 2,300 by the spring. All of them are long it. Their trading desks are all long, and so that's why they're now going out and advising people to buy it. Well, why? Because they stopped shorting it, and now they're taking positions. So what they're going to do, they're going to go out and they're going to hype it, and they're going to tout it really strong. And the more people read that, the more they're going to buy it. So that's a foregone conclusion. When you have some of the major bank players from J.P. Morgan all the way to HSBC and all these people all over the planet telling their major clients to buy gold and precious metals, it's going to become a real thing, and it's starting to get going. So that's just another reason for your listeners to strongly consider adding to your precious metal collection. So we feel very confident about that.
Good. All right. So libertygoldandsilver.com, if you have any questions about that, you don't have to buy anything from them. Call them. Ask for Mike. If he's there, he'll speak to you, and you'll get the straight scoop. No hustle, no scam. You'll get it just like you're getting it here. Now, if you want to buy gold, I get to the point where I'm wondering, is there actually enough gold left around that's available that people could buy?
Well, there is, except that the price is going to get a lot higher and has.
Big premiums.
The availability is doing better right now because some of the real insane demand has dropped a little bit, but it's still very strong. We're picking up new clients continuously, and also a lot of the orders are very pronounced. The size. I mean.
All right,
so
very
we
good.
think that's going to continue. I mean, there is available, but the actual mining supply of the world is declining profoundly.
That's what I keep reading. So I mean, there's going to be a premium put on all gold, and it has to drive the price up. People will pay it to get gold.
Well, another thing that people don't understand is that all the easy gold is found. They're mining right now in Borneo at 16,000 feet where they actually get snow to find it. Also up in the Golden Triangle off the coast of
16,000 feet, 3 miles high.
In the snow. Yeah, in Borneo, right at the top of the mountain there, they get snow. Those basically equatorial. There's major gold mining going in there. What I'm saying is, you have to go to really extreme places where you have to do road building, like 150 miles of gravel road to bring into places like in the Golden Triangle of Canada. Mm-hmm. When a company declares a gold strike, or they buy land and they have to go through a 2 or 3 year period with the government to get environmental regulations, permits, even that can be a very painstaking progress. And then they survey the land. Now they're using drones and all kinds of ground penetrating radar and very advancing, but even with that, and then they have to do major drill sampling. Sometimes that can cost millions of dollars, and to do thousands of acres, that can take 3 or 4 or 5 years to be. They drill at different depths. So basically, the average time to bring a new gold producing facility online, get into production where they're actually dumping loads and they're refining it, that kind of thing. So basically over 20 years. So it's not like starting up a new warehouse or building a new road or something. It's over 20 years to bring a new online project online. And with this demand continuing and the central banks continuing to buy gold around the world, there's no easy metals to be found right now. And with the demand continuing, you can expect this is going to play a real role in that. It's going to drive prices a lot higher. What
about rare earths?
We know that.
You also handle some very unusual metals.
We don't trade in the rare earths. We trade in the minor platinum metal groups, and we're the only dealer in the United States that trades in all of them. Those are rhodium, ruthenium, and iridium. And we make the largest retail market just about in the world for that of any dealer on the planet. And we've grown that idea for the last 7-8 years, and we've made a lot of our clients exceeding a lot of money by encouraging them to buy that. Some of their appreciation was over in rhodium was over 2,000% for some of our clients. So we felt really, really good that we could. And there were some small people that just only had $3,000 or $4,000 to invest. So they'd buy like $6,000. They bought 10 ounces of rhodium, and we bought it back for them. And made them. They turned that 6,000 into 120 grand. You know. So that made us feel really, really good for, especially our smaller clients that took a risk on that in the beginning. They did really well on it. A lot of them have cashed it in back with us, and that made us some money. And they also been trading it for a lot of gold and silver as well, and some platinum things, because that's the next thing is making the move. And so they just profoundly, we felt really, really good to help those people do that. Put a really, really nice smile on our face. We made a little money on it too, but mostly felt really happy for our investors because they just did really, really well. And so we encouraged them in the beginning, and we were right about that, to get into that. And we felt like what
a nice thing to hear. Very good.
Yeah. A couple other things occurring I'd like to talk very briefly about. Just a couple other points I'll talk about real briefly here. One I was going to get to and pull this up real quickly. Pension plans in this country are just absolutely just horrible. I mean, they're just completely falling apart. They're predicted to be underfunded right now. And the absolute minimum is underfunded by about $700 billion cumulatively, state, and the public pension plans. But probably we think the underfunding is well north of $1 trillion. And what is starting to happen for the first time, it's difficult because these pension plans, they're limited on what they can do. A lot of them, they have mandates they must buy bonds, but they have to produce 7 to 8% appreciation every year without any losses to take care of all their employees or retirees. Yet, how can they buy a 10-year treasury that only pays 6.65%, 2/3 of 1%? How can you generate 7% return for your clients, your retirees, on a bond that pays not even 1% interest? So what they're starting to do, several of them are starting to look at other alternatives. And last week, the Ohio Police and Fire Pension Fund made a 5% allocation of $16 billion. Made a 5% allocation of their $16 billion into gold. And also, the Texas Teacher Retirement System has also gone into that.
Say that one more time. This is the Fireman's Pension Fund. Put how much into gold?
5% of their allocated $16 billion into gold. They just did it last week. Okay, and also the Texas Teachers Retirement System. I understand they have about $1 billion in gold and in holdings, and they're both targeting about $1 billion. Here's an interesting story you're going to like. Really, Wyoming wanted to do that, but they had a big contentious argument, and it was overturned last year. Wyoming they didn't get it put through, and one of their major deputies who was in charge, he was an assistant to the state treasurer. He decided he would bet instead of buying gold, he would do heavy investing in third world debt installments. And Wyoming, in the last part of from February 2019 until just up in the last year, those investments lost $300 million for the state of Wyoming by buying third world debt. And at the time they were considering this, gold was trading at $1,300 an ounce. So if they put that same money, gold trading at they would have
why
like
the hell would they buy
45%.
third world debt? I don't understand.
Because they pay high interest, 5-6% versus 0.5%, 1.25%, 2. In other words, they're looking for they're looking for high yield. But these countries, what was not considered and is axiomatic is that third world debt. When things get in trouble, those countries' currency starts declining rapidly, can drop 5% a week against the U.S. dollar. So what if they pay really high interest rates? If their currency is collapsing at 5 to 10% a month against your currency, it turns out to be a massive net loss. Irrespective, that extra 3 or 4 percentage points you're getting is not worth the risk, and it never has been. That's what almost brought down Citigroup and bankrupted them, except the Fed came in and bailed them out entirely. They lent, $100 billion to Argentina, and every one of those loans went bad. And the Fed came in and made them whole back in the 1980s, and saved Citicorp from complete bankruptcy. And what do? They just took that money and did it again. And so that isn't crony capitalism. That's actually crony communism, where just a very tiny percentage of the population makes great money and great wealth and great enjoyment. Everybody else shares the misery equally. And that's how we look at that. There's another couple of very, very interesting right along with that idea. I was just going to throw out here. This is a really incredible article. In light of that last point, how just a very tiny percentage of the population is actually participating in this big game. The article just appearing here is actually just a couple, I think on the 8th of October, and this article's not coming out here. It came up just now. Sorry, slow loading here for me. It was just announced here on the 8th of October. We're talking just 5 days ago. That 59 Americans own more wealth. These are all billionaires. They own more wealth than. Excuse me, just a second here. They own more wealth than half the country of half the population of the United States. 59 Americans, Jeff Bezos and company, Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Okay. The poorest 50% of Americans, or roughly 165 million people collectively, own $2.8 trillion. Yet 59 Americans own $2.9 trillion. So they own more wealth than 165 million Americans. The most egregious bifurcation. This makes the reigns of Louis XVI look really benign. When he started the French Revolution. More than that, and another. Sorry, this thing keeps skipping around on me here. Sorry about that. I'm a little computer glitch tonight. Sorry about that. But in any case, another thing. There was. And another point here is just amazing. The upper wealthiest 1% of Americans, 1%, own a net worth of $34.23 trillion, meaning that they were more than 6 times richer than the nation's poorest 50%, 16 times on aggregate, all combined. So this is like really, really something. We've talked on the phone in person, Jeff, but what we're seeing here is the complete financialization, artificial financialization of the entire economy. It's not production anymore. It's borrowing. It is not. It is.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Not manufacturing, not production, not consuming, but indirectly consuming by borrowing.
Indirectly consuming by borrowing. Yeah, 72% of the GDP is in consumer spending. Unbelievable. What's the rest then?
72%. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, of the GDP, the gross domestic product of this country, is consumer spending?
In various kinds. Now, some is hard spending in houses and things like that.
I get it, but geez.
But, in other words, the savings rate is horrible. It's just absolutely horrible.
What savings rate? Yeah.
What rate? I know. There isn't any. It just continues. Some other notes along this line of reading of what's really happening on Main Street. We're talking about we're talking about what's happening to the uber wealthy here. Here's a nice thing. Las Vegas records alarming surge in apartment tenant unable to pay rent. That's just really falling apart. They right now have 7% of their, no, more than that. It's increased here. An alarming 10.6% of Vegas apartment tenants were unable to pay rent in August. To 10% of a city of 2.6 million people. Okay, huge. Can't pay their rent, and that's just getting started. The complete hemorrhaging of all gambling in the world. And that's probably a good thing, but it's not good for all the employees that work there and make their life savings and depend on that.
When they shut down all the conventions, that was the end of that was pretty much the end of it.
They've closed them everywhere. It's just all gone. I mean, there is no more conventions. I don't think there's going to be. Nobody's going to put up with this kind of. Besides, a lot of these conventions were held in places like San Francisco and LA. They were already dropping profoundly because people were sick into going to those cities with all the filthy conditions there and things like that. Along with that, the top U.S. food bank warns that there'll be a massive nationwide meal shortages within 8 months that could affect as many as 22.3 million people. So they will not have enough food to give extra food away in food banks. They're going to run out here shortly within 8 months. That's what they're reporting. They will not have any more to give away to people.
8
give away.
billion meal. They're going to be 8 billion meals short that they would otherwise be giving out to people in need. They're going to be 8 billion meals short. And I've forgotten the time. Let me see if I can find this. 8 billion meals short. I think it's over the next 12 months. Okay, here.
The next 8 months to 12, between 8 to 12 months. It doesn't matter. I mean, that comes. Those years come by pretty fast at my age. You know what I mean? It's like yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock or something like that. And that's what we're looking for here. And there's no money.
That's it.
Donations are way down on charity.
6 to 8 billion meal shortfall in the next 12 months. 6 to 8 billion meals will not be given to Americans. They will not be eating. They will not have food. Shortfall in the next 12 months. And I've been saying for a long time that the food chain is broken and breaking. When this comes home to roost, Mike, it's going to be hell on earth. What do you think all those Antifa, BLM communists are going to do when they need to eat? Huh? What are they going to do? They're going to try
to come in your back door.
That's right.
That's what they're going to do. Now, here's another absolutely outrageous fact. There's a complete bifurcation in the real estate market. We've talked in your last program how there's a massive demand for millionaire homes built in rural land at any cost, at any price, immediately. Get them up in 5 months and get us in there. That's one side of the equation, and that is still causing housing prices nationally to rise. That alone, basically. A massive demand of wealthy people moving out of the big cities out into rural and or very wealthy suburbs like the Hamptons and Long Island out of New York City, and just buying and paying any price for a new home. We'll offer you 3 times what you want for it to move in there. So that's driving up the market. Now, juxtaposed to that, listen to this article. Subprime, no problem. FHA mortgages delinquency rate hit 17.4% as Fed triggers mad land rush in split housing market. Split meaning between the wealthy and the non-wealthy. Right. Atlanta alone, in the Atlanta metro area, this is a staggering statistic. There are 53,000 FHA delinquent mortgages. Houston metro area, 47,000 delinquent mortgages. So,
what are these? This is not commercial real estate. We're talking about.
These are residential houses. People living in.
Okay.
Here's some other percentages.
Where are these people going to go? Where are they going to go?
I don't know where they're going.
Portland,
Chicago area in Evanston, Illinois, 40,000. In and not just real poor. There's Washington, Alexandria, D.C., Maryland, real in there, 29,000. Dallas, Plano, Irving, 27,000. Riverside, San Bernardino, Ontario, California, 23,000. Baltimore, Columbia, 21,000. San Antonio, 17,000. Orlando, 16,000. These are just all massive delinquency, just blowing up like crazy. And guess what? They're not counting the people in these delinquencies that have been put into forbearance, meaning the bank has extended them 6 or 8 months before they have to make payments again. There are hundreds of thousands of forbearance cases in low-end mortgages all over the nation. They're not being counted as delinquent. They're still being counted as a performing loan. Of course, completely and totally criminally illegal to do that under normal accounting regulations, but banks don't work by normal accounting regulations. They work by their own regulations that have been approved for a long time. So they can count those in their balance sheet as performing loans, and those people haven't paid a cent. So you have to add that on top of all these incredible amount of foreclosures. It's a delinquency. So probably and realistically, it's not 17.4%. It's probably working on 25 to 30 if you want to count for all those and when this is all said and done. I mean, this is amazing. These are amazing statistics, and what happens when they will start foreclosing these? They'll have no choice. What happens then? And more importantly, how about all the banks and the lenders that own all that debt? What's going to happen to them? Well, they're going to get more free money shoved to them. They're going to have to keep them from collapsing, of course.